So hey guys, welcome back on another episode of Restlessness with your girl Cynthia Natasha Aluma. So if you are new here, welcome to the Arise Network. So we call this family, this safe space, Arise Network, for a reason that I'll share with you in another episode. And if you are not new here, like if this is not your first time, welcome again. And I must say that I miss you guys. It's been like 2-3 weeks, but anyway, I'm back and I'm glad that I am here and also you are here, because what I have for you today, I need you to sit with this one, not just watch it. No, I need you to sit with this one, because we are going to talk about something that I think a lot of us have been living in it without even realizing that we are doing so. We've been talking about a whole series on rest, what it means, why it matters, why so many of us are living without it, why we need to be intentional when receiving it, how we need to go about finding it, And then last time I had to take a turn and talk about something that is on the other side of rest, which is restlessness. And I said something that I want to make sure that you remember. I said that restlessness has two faces, more like a coin, two sides, same object, but completely different faces. So one side of that coin is divine, it is holy, it is the kind of restlessness that God uses to shake you out of where you are and push you towards where you need to be. So that kind of restlessness starts revival inside a person, inside a man. That is the kind that wakes you up like maybe 2 a.m. in the morning, not because you are anxious about anything, but because something in your spirit is saying that there is more for you and you need to go and get it. So that one we talked about and it was beautiful, and I hope that you got hold of that insight, But today I want to talk about the other kind, the other side of that coin. So that side does not come from God. Like the other side, it doesn't come from God. That side is not even a catalyst of change, but it's a sign that something is already broken, So this is the restlessness that rises from the inside when you are not living in harmony with who you were created to be. So when you have drifted from God, when you have drifted from your values, or when you have drifted from your purpose and something deep inside you knows it, that internal voice, that internal noise, that unsettling, feeling that you cannot shake, no matter how much, you sleep, no matter how much you scroll, no matter how much you stay busy, that feeling like something is always off, something is always missing, or you are always searching but never arriving. That is what we are talking about today. That is what I am calling the other side of restlessness, which is not all positive in nature on the surface. And the Bible does not play around with this. It gives us one of the most, I believe, striking and most painful at the same time, the most honest picture of what this looks like in the story of Cain. You know the story. Cain and Abel, they were brothers. Both they brought offerings before God. God receives Abel's offering and does not receive Cain's offering. And instead of Cain going inward, instead of asking God what he was missing, Cain went outward, and he let jealousy take root, and he let anger build, and then let sin cancel him. So he made a choice at the end of the day. But what hits me about this story is not even the act itself, it's what God said afterward. Among other things that God spoke over Cain's life as a consequence of what he had done, he said, "Cain, you will be a restless wanderer on earth." So I'm more interested with these two phrases, like these two words, a restless wanderer, because God was not just describing, something physical, like a physical movement. No, he wasn't just saying that Cain would travel a lot. No, but he was describing something more devastating, more than a geographical displacement. He was describing a soul without an anchor, a heart without direction, a life without peace, a life that moves and moves and moves but never arrives anywhere meaningful. Now, here is the weight of it all. Cain's restlessness was not a wake-up call from God. It was not God positioning him for something great. It was not a divine push, toward destiny or whatever. It was a direct consequence of disconnecting, from the truth. So he chose his own path instead of God's voice. He stepped out of alignment, and he was living with what misalignment produces inside a man. The reason is because this kind of restlessness, it's not about your circumstances, it's not about your environment, but it's about what is happening on your inside. And the most heartbreaking thing is that this kind of restlessness can start to feel normal if you sit in it for a long time. Like, you start calling chaos your personality. You start calling maybe emotional heaviness as this is just how I am wired. You start labeling distance from God as just another season, one of those seasons. I'll get over it, I'll get past it. And I want you to hear that clearly. That might be maybe how you have been surviving. That might be maybe the coping mechanism that got you this far. And I'm not going to minimize what you have been through or what you have been carrying, but that is not your identity. That is not how your story needs to end. Love yourself enough so genuinely that you will let light into your wound, into your restlessness, into your soul, into the places that you have been avoiding. Because the truth is this kind of restlessness is not leading you anywhere meaningful. No, if anything, it's leading you deeper into confusion, deeper into cycling into the same unresolved patterns, deeper into the version of yourself that was never real in the first place. Now, let me give you another picture of this, because the Bible is layered. Like, there is also something that in Isaiah that adds a whole new dimension to what we are looking for. Isaiah 57 verse 20. So it says that the wicked are like a restless sea, always tossing, always churning, always in motion. It's never still. But then the other part, it says that the sea in its restlessness, it cuts up nothing but dead, mud, and filthy things from the bottom. And that image is so precise and so honest, because what misaligned restlessness does, what it actually produces in a person's life, is exactly that. Like, it stirs up things that it stirs up things from the bottom. It resurfaces anxiety that you thought maybe you had dealt with it. It resurfaces insecurities, odd fears, shame, patterns that you keep repeating, mistakes that you keep making, because the internal churning, it never stops. It keeps bringing what should stay deep on the surface. Now, whatever is inside a man, whatever is inside a person, it does not stay buried forever when there is restlessness. Whenever there is restlessness, those things that are buried down on the inside, they need to find an explanation outside. Like, they rise up to the surface. And this rising is not always judgment. Sometimes it's revelation. Like, it's just revealing a condition. It is showing that it is showing you what still needs the peace of God. It is exposing the parts of us that have not yet been touched, healed, or even surrendered. So when God was pointing out to Cain that you are going to be a restless one, he was only making him to be aware of what was inside of him. So when the inside is restless, the stuff underneath, the unprocessed things, the unresolved things, the unredeemed things, they rise to the surface. And this took my mind straight back to the very beginning, Genesis 1. God creates the heavens and then he creates the earth. But then verse 2 shifts immediately and describes the condition of the earth before God begins, shaping it. And listen to how it describes it. It was formless, it was empty, it was covered in darkness, and then it mentions the surface of the deep. And then it also mentions the Spirit of God hovering the waters. Now, here is what caught me in the passage, and I want you to pay very much attention. There is no earlier mention of God creating water. only that God created the heaven and the earth, but suddenly there is a deep, and then there is water, and then there is darkness hovering over it. Before God even began to speak what we hear him speak in the rest of the verses. And I started to think about man. Man is spirit, man is soul, and man is body. But the body, this physical flame, is where we live in. It's the earth. And just like the earth in Genesis, this human flame has a deep, it has a space, kind of like a vacuum that nothing in this world can fill, only God can fill. And before God does his work in a man, before the renewing, before the healing, before the alignment, that deep looks like what Genesis 1 verse 2 is describing: formless, empty, dark, unshaped, and filled without direction. And we know from scripture that darkness represents confusion. Like every time you see the word darkness, you're thinking disorder, and everything that is not aligned with the nature of God and the purpose of God, that's darkness. So anything that rises from that deep in its untouched state, it speaks from formlessness. It speaks of emptiness. It reveals that the part of a human condition that have not yet been worked on, redeemed, or filled with light. Now connect that to Isaiah. A restless sea casts up nothing but dirt and mud. So restlessness exposes what lies beneath. It brings up what has not been transformed. So here is what God did. And God sent his spirit to hover over the waters before he began the work. Before he even spoke light, before he even shaped anything, before he even filled anything, the Spirit of God was not just there and hovering over the face of the deep. And hovering is not just a poetic image. No, it's a covering, a stabilizing presence, a restraining force, that kept the deep from being tossed, that prevented, whatever impurities lay underneath from rising before God had worked on it, like before God had worked on the earth. The spirit hovering was actually a covering, not a condemnation. It shows that the presence of God was present, it was close, it was protective before even the transformation began. That should tell you that that's exactly what happens when a person has just come to God. Like the moment they give their lives to him, your spirit is instantly transformed, recreated, made alive, and that happens in just a moment. But the soul, on the other hand, the soul needs time. The soul needs time. Like the soul needs time to adjust to what has just happened to the spirit. It needs time to unlearn old patterns. It needs time to process years of wounds. It needs time to process years of wrong thinking, years of coping in the wrong ways. It needs time to renew. It needs time to heal. It needs time to align with the new identity that the spirit has just already received. Now, in that gap between a spirit being transformed and the soul being worked on, that's where God comes in and covers you. Like his spirit hovers you deep. His peace holds you, like it holds what is still being healed, and it keeps what is not yet ready from rising prematurely before he has finished shaping it. So this is why the peace of God is described as surpassing humankind understanding, because people look at someone who is still being worked on from the inside, and then they wonder why how the person is being held all together. Like the honest answer is God is hovering over the deep of that person. He's keeping that person still. He's keeping that person, the things that are buried inside of him from tossing to the surface. And I believe that I strongly believe that this is why we all need the Holy Spirit, not just to transform us, but to cover us and to hold us together until the transformation inside of us is complete. Here is the bottom line. You were never meant to live as a restless wanderer. You were never designed to move through life without, direction. You were never meant to move and, do life without peace, without grounding. That heaviness you feel, your soul was not built to carry it. And deep down, I think you already know that. I think everyone does. That is why you feel, scattered. That is why you feel drained. That is why you feel like, something is always slightly out of reach, no matter how much time, no matter how much you try to pursue it, because something is missing. And what is missing is the peace of God. What is missing is the rest of God, the anchoring, the alignment, the rootedness and the connection with God that brings, everything back together and to a center. So that is what is missing, and more effort will not fix it. More busyness will not cover it. No distraction will quiet it. No. The only way out of this kind of restlessness, it's not through more hustle. The only way out of this restlessness is not through, a new self-improvement plan. No, it's not even through a sheer willpower or a positive thinking or simply deciding to, I think, let me do better. No, the only way through this is returning to the one who calms the sea, the one who stills the deep, the one who gives your soul a home again. You cannot silence this kind of internal chaos on your own. You cannot reset your own life without God. You cannot rearrange your identity without the one who designed it in the first place. So the invitation today is simple, but trust me, it's not small as it sounds. I just need you to love yourself. I'm saying this again, love yourself enough to stop running and just to return to the maker of your life, Return to surrender, return to alignment, return to the presence of God, return to a place where your rest is not just a feeling, that you chase, but actually it's a state of being that you live from. So because the opposite of restlessness is not control or achievement or finally getting life together, but the opposite of restless wandering is actually communion with God, being in a relationship with God, like with the one who actually can anchor your soul and knows how deep your soul is, So let me invite you with this before I go. If you recognize this restlessness in your life, don't ignore it. Don't normalize it. Don't keep calling it your personality or your season or just how things are. Let that be a sign, but also a gentle, firm invitation to come back to God. To the one who gives peace that actually holds the whole soul, the whole spirit, and even your body steady. So I want you to take a moment today, even after this video ends, and ask yourself honestly, where have I drifted? Where have I allowed distraction, avoidance, or fear to step into the places that only God's guidance belongs? And I want you to be honest with yourself. And then after that, bring it all before God. Like, bring all that confusion, all that unrest, all that heaviness, the things that you've been carrying around, for longer than you should have, and then surrender it before God. Because God cannot heal what you keep hiding. Like, He can only transform and purify only the things that you give Him. And remember this, that alignment or realignment does not have to be all dramatic. It does not require those grand gestures or a perfect moment. No, it just starts with a simple decision. It starts with a simple choice of you deciding to stop wandering, like the choice to stop pretending, the choice to stop running from the truth, and simply step back into His presence. Your heart does not have to live like a restless sea. No. You are invited into real peace, and that is what I am doing right this second. I'm inviting you into real purpose, real clarity, the kind of peace that God only provides. So come back, come home, let him restore your soul, and as you do that, keep leaning in, keep listening, because what we are talking about, like what we are walking through together, is just the beginning. Like you reconnecting yourself with God is just the beginning. There is so much more to discover about what it looks like to actually have or live in true rest and in full alignment with God. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye for now.